Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm running down my top 10 solo-only board games. Normally I prefer a game that can accommodate a wide variety of player counts. Maybe I'll do that list at some point. But there's something enticing about a design that focuses on the solo experience. Think of the design space that opens up when you're not shackled to a 4-player count. There aren't a ton of solo-only games, and keep in mind that I'm not a war gamer, so I haven't played many of those solo games, but the number is growing every year as solo gaming in general becomes more popular. I hope more designers decide to explore the solo-only space, because I think there's a lot of innovation left to discover. But with that, let's jump right into the list. Under Falling Skies is a popular dice-rolling puzzle game that can be played either as a standalone scenario or as a full campaign. Each round you roll 5 dice, 3 gray and 2 white, and then you assign them into rooms in order to take a handful of actions. The trick is you can only use 1 die per column, and whenever you place a white die, you must re-roll all of your unplaced dice. When you place any die, all of the alien ships in the corresponding column move down towards the city equal to the pip value of the die. They then activate the space that they end on. They might land on a space that lowers the mothership, and if that gets too low, you instantly lose. Also, if an alien ship makes it all the way down the board, they damage the city, and if you take too much damage, you can also lose. But if you can maneuver the alien ships into specific spaces, then you can use an attack action to force them back to the mothership. To win the game, you need to activate enough research actions in order to move all the way up the research track. And you'll also need to generate energy in order to pay for most of the actions, as well as to pay to move your excavator further down underground, which will open up more and more powerful rooms. It's all very simple, but the puzzle itself is crunchy and interesting. It rewards careful planning and analysis, and this is a great example of the power of a solo-only design. As I've said in a previous video, AP doesn't exist in a solo game, only A. Analysis paralysis isn't a problem when no one's waiting for you to finish your turn. So these games can really lean into the puzzliness and reward players who are willing to analyze and find the best strategy. You'll see this same thing in many of the games on this list. The reason Under Falling Skies is lower than most people probably would have it is because I find the process of puzzling out the dice placements to be a little less satisfying than in other games. The puzzle itself is brilliantly constructed, but solving it leaves me a little bit cold. But it is really quick and easy to set up, so I still really like it a lot. That's Under Falling Skies. Friday is a clever deck building game and is the oldest solo-only game on this list. It was certainly the first solo-only game I ever played. After all of these years, it remains one of the most innovative deck building games of all time. You play as Robinson Crusoe, or I guess you're Friday trying to help Robinson Crusoe get better at surviving on the island? I'm not entirely sure. But each turn you're faced with a challenge, and if you succeed, you get to flip the card over and add it to your deck. But you also must manage your health, purposefully injuring yourself at times in order to trash bad cards and thin your deck. Deciding when to push for success and when to admit failure is so tricky, and after all of this time, I have yet to master it. Now, notoriously, this game has been quote-unquote solved, which means there is a way to mostly guarantee success. I have no idea what the technique is, and I do not want to know. Please don't post it here. Maybe one day I'll figure it all out, but until then, this remains a challenging and entertaining card game. Warp's Edge is a bag builder, which is a lot like a deck building game, except you add tokens to a bag instead of cards into a deck. You'll go up against a fleet of minion ships represented by a deck of cards, as well as one of several different motherships with unique properties and abilities. When you either defeat or evade an enemy ship, you place a new token into your bag, slowly building up an arsenal of firepower and special actions. Warp's Edge illustrates something I love about most solo-only games, and that is flow, pace. You pull some tokens out of the bag, assign them to the ships, maybe take one out, and then boom, you're right back to drawing more tokens and doing the fun stuff. It's such an addictive gaming loop, and it really captures the spirit of an epic space battle. And it's only possible because you don't have to wait for someone else to take their turn, or three other someones. It keeps the flow. If you want to see what I'm talking about in action, I really tried to capture that feeling in my full playthrough of Warp's Edge. I think you'll see what I mean if you check out the playthrough. For Northwood is a quick-playing trick-taking card game. The gimmick of a solo trick-taking game really gets your attention. It sure got mine. I was like, I have got to try this because that can't possibly work. But it actually creates a wonderfully puzzly game where each round you're attempting to win an exact number of tricks. I remember in college I used to play trick-taking games all the time with my friends. We would be in the library all night studying, and we'd take breaks by playing cards, and there was a game that we played all the time called Oh Hell, where that's exactly what you have to do. You have to guess the number of tricks you're going to take. Here, you have 8 rounds, and each round you have to attempt to take a different number of tricks, from 0 to 7. So you look at your hand and say, all right, I think I can take 5 tricks. If you succeed, you score some points, but then you can no longer attempt to take 5 tricks. So by the end of the game, your choices are very limited, and you might have to only take 1 trick with a really strong hand, or vice versa. Luckily, throughout the game, you're growing a pool of special abilities that you must strategically activate to achieve your goals. There's a lot of pushing your luck, taking calculated risks, and when you pull off the perfect round, it really feels satisfying, even if you need a little bit of luck along the way. This is a game that really shatters the myth that certain genres or mechanisms can't be adapted to solo play. Again and again, we're seeing that argument is utter nonsense, and For Northwood is another great example. Legacy of You is a campaign-based Euro game that features some light legacy elements, or rather legacy-like elements. Nothing gets destroyed or anything like that. There's a storybook where occasionally throughout the game you'll get a little bit of narrative. There's cards that are coming in and going out between games, changing things up a bit. It's all a fairly unusual combination. It really feels like this game could easily be multiplayer, either competitive or cooperative. It wouldn't really take that much tweaking to make it work. But the fact that it's solo only really feels significant to me. We don't have an AI opponent that we have to manage. It's a clear win-lose victory condition, and it plays really quick for a medium weight Euro game, especially one with really meaty decisions. The fact that Legacy of You is solo only makes a big difference. You can really feel it when you play. Now, I should make it clear that I've not finished the campaign. Like most campaigns, I'm about halfway through, but I'm really enjoying it and I really want to finish. So just keep that in mind. I can't really give a final rating until I've completed the campaign. And also, if you would like to learn more about exactly how Legacy of You plays, I've done a full solo playthrough, so go check it out. Maquis is a small box, quick playing worker placement game where you take the role of freedom fighters resisting the Nazi occupation of France during World War II. You start with 3 resistance fighters in your safe house, and you'll be placing them in locations throughout the city in order to gain resources and take special actions. The twist here is that police meeples are being randomly placed in locations as well. And at the end of the round, your workers need to be able to trace a clear path back to your hideout. If they can't make it back to the hideout, they are caught by the police and you lose that meeple for the rest of the game. But because the police most likely won't land where you already have a meeple, it means that you might place a worker in a useless spot just to keep the police from going there, so you can guarantee safe access to another more important spot. It's almost like you're creating like supply lines. And that's a really clever system that adds stressful moments of push your luck to a sort of typical worker placement formula. It also really brings the theme to life. In order to win, you need to complete 2 objectives, which you pick at the beginning of the game, and the whole thing is only like 20 to 30 minutes long, yet it feels like a much more rich and fulfilling experience than you would get out of most half-an-hour games. And that's a common trait for these solo-only games. They're very efficient and able to pack a punch in a really short period of time. So anyway, that's Maquis. As I mentioned earlier, solo-only games excel at puzzly play, and ROVE is a perfect example. In this 18-card pocket microgame from Button Shy Games, you play as a cute little robot, a results-oriented, versatile explorer. You have 6 module cards on the table that you must rearrange into specific patterns. To do so, you need to spend movement points from cards in your hand. And each module moves in a different way. One of them can only move one space orthogonally, one can only move diagonally, one pushes other modules, and one has to jump over other modules in order to move. Each module also has a unique special ability that can only be used once per game. All of these factors combine to create a great puzzle. Accomplishing a task might be easy in, say, 5 moves, but can you figure out how to do it in 4 or even 3 moves? There's often a more efficient way, and you have to be efficient in order to succeed at this game. As I mentioned before, this game rewards you for taking the time to analyze the situation, to not be satisfied with the first thought that comes to your mind, but to find a better way. And when you discover a better solution, it just feels so good. That's ROVE. Coffee Roaster is another bag builder, similar to Warp's Edge, but rather than simulating an epic space battle, this one is about making the perfect cup of coffee. Slightly different stakes. When I think about Coffee Roaster, I keep coming back to the same word, quirky. It's just the best way to describe it. Everything here is quirky, from that theme to the artwork to the gameplay, which involves putting tokens into a bag, manipulating those tokens with special abilities, discarding the bad ones, and roasting coffee beans to higher numbers, and then putting everything back into the bag. You keep doing that over and over again, trying to tune the bag. So when you brew a cup of coffee at the end of the game, you can pull tokens out that will add up to the exact right number. Very few games do this 2-staged approach, where in the first part of the game, you're building up, and then in the second part, you're sort of testing what you've done previously. Galaxy Trucker is a game that comes to mind that does that, and I love it in every game that does it. Coffee Roaster truly feels unique. It's just so different from even other bag builders. It's a true solo-only gem. Halls of Hegra is a war-themed tower defense game that also features bag building, action selection using different workers, pick up and deliver, resource management, a morale system, and dice-based combat. There's a lot going on. This is by far the most complex and epic game on this list. You play as the commander of a group of Norwegian volunteers fighting an overwhelming German force from an abandoned mountain fortress in the early days of World War II. It takes its inspiration from other worker placement survival games like Robinson Crusoe and this War of Mine. How incredible is it that Robinson Crusoe keeps inspiring designers even after all these years? I especially love how Halls of Hegra plays out using like a classic 3-act structure, where the intensity keeps building as it goes along. By the end, you are desperately trying to survive an all-out German assault in a harrowing and memorable final stand. This game feels downright unwinnable at times, but honestly, I like that feeling in a survival game. And speaking of survival games, we finally get to Final Girl. a card and dice driven survival horror game that lets you experience whatever trope you desire, from classic slasher films to stranger science fiction and fantasy themes. To my mind, this game does horror better than any other board game. And honestly, how else could you do justice to this theme other than with a solo-only game? You have to play by yourself to capture that feeling of being the last one standing against a terrifying evil force. And I love how every scenario box has a different stereotypical location, villain, and a couple of final girls, all with unique rules and special abilities, so you can just buy the stories that most appeal to you. On your turn, you play cards and activate them by rolling dice to see how well you accomplish the action. As you use these cards, they go back into a display and must be reacquired at the end of your turn by spending time. And time is also a resource that you spend to take action, so you need to find a good balance between getting new cards and using the ones that you have. There's plenty of luck in rolling the dice to activate your action cards, but the cinematic storytelling makes every bad roll feel thematic and satisfying. For me, there's no better solo-only game than Final Girl. It's my number one. And there we go, 10 amazing solo games. There's quite a few that I still need to get to the table, including Mr. President, Hoplomachus Victorum, Black Sonata, and Iron Helm. Hopefully I'll be able to do that soon. Are there any other games that I missed? Please let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.